I was stationed at a remote military outpost in Alaska about 3 months ago. I thought it would be a great chance to gain some experience as a logistics officer. The place was eerie. It was a cluster of old buildings surrounded by endless, white snow that stretched on forever. I figured the isolation would just be a test of my resolve. On my second night, I was in the radio room. I picked up some odd communications. It was mostly static, but sometimes I thought I heard a voice. It sounded like numbers repeating and strange instructions. I didn't know what to make of it. I reported it up the chain, but my superiors shrugged it off. They acted like it was nothing. Days went by, and we had all sorts of missing supplies. One minute we had enough gear, and the next, it just vanished. I started to feel a strange tension in the air. It was too quiet, even for Alaska. Sometimes I noticed my fellow officers acting oddly. They followed routines that felt pointless. I couldn't shake my doubts. One night, I found a dusting manual hidden in a cabinet. I opened it, and my heart raced. It was full of bizarre rules that I'd never heard during my training. It was about how to communicate. Things like when to speak and when to stay quiet. I felt uneasy reading it. Why was no one talking about it? Maybe I was just paranoid, but it didn't add up. That same night, I kept hearing the radio crackle. I thought it was the same voice from before, but now it felt more urgent. "Do not leave," it said. I got cold chills. My hands shook as I fiddled with the knobs, trying to find something that made sense. But all I got was garbled nonsense. I felt lost, like I was stuck on a road with no escape. A few days later, we had a meeting in the mess hall. I brought up the voice and the strange supplies. I hoped we could talk it through. But my teammates just stared at me, their faces blank, before quickly changing the subject. I could feel my anxiety rise. Why didn't they care? Then came the last time I heard that voice on the radio. It sounded clear. "Do not leave." Then it cut out. I looked around at my teammates, hoping to find some kind of support. But no one said anything, and I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I wanted to ask, what does it mean? By then, I felt something closing in on me. It was like a weight in the air. I took a deep breath and turned around to see who was there. But there was nothing behind me, just the snow drifting softly outside. I felt trapped in that outpost. Something was very wrong, and I didn't know what to do next. I spent restless days trying to shake off the unease. I forced myself to stay busy. Yet each time I walked past the radio room, I felt drawn to it. The static still lingered in my mind, that urgent warning echoing, "Do not leave." I couldn't ignore it anymore. One morning, I made my way to the radio room again. I was alone. The other officers were out on patrol, their absence only deepening my sense of isolation. I closed the door behind me and flicked the power on. The room lit up, casting a harsh glow across the dusty equipment. I fiddled with the dials, and once again I heard that faint crackling noise. "Do not leave." The voice was low and raspy. It sent chills creeping down my spine. I took a deep breath, almost unable to push myself to respond. "Who are you?" I called out. The static only grew louder, as if mocking me. Then, to my surprise, something shifted. There was a flicker in the transmission. It felt like the radio was trying to align itself with something more coherent. Numbers began streaming through, one after another. 5, 17, 23. The voice returned, but it was fractured. "Find the files." "Find the files?" I whispered, half convinced I was losing my mind. I didn't know what files it meant. A surge of determination sparked within me. I had to find out what was happening, and I had to do it quickly. With a shaky breath, I left the radio room. I made my way to the supply office first, hoping it might hold some clues about the missing equipment. When I got there, I started going through the shelves, looking for anything out of place. It was a mess of boxes stacked high. I pulled one down and opened it. Inside, instead of the expected gear, were piles of paperwork. I started rifling through the papers, my heart racing. They were all typed in a strange code. I recognized some of the numbers, like those I'd heard on the radio. I scanned the pages, searching for something relevant, desperate for answers. Then I found it. A list of supplies, with names next to each item, but the names were crossed out. I turned over another page. It felt like I was peering into a twisted game. Some notes were written in hurried script, warnings about completing the circle and never asking questions. Suddenly, my radio crackled from my pocket. I jumped. I pulled it out. It was on, and the static filled the air. Do not leave. Act now. Find the codes. I froze. The voice had shifted. It was urgent now, almost pleading. My eyes darted back to the papers. Codes? What did that mean? I felt the mounting pressure again, the sense that something profound was unfolding around me. Before I could process what to do next, the door swung open and one of my teammates stood there, face pale. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice flat. There was something in his tone that felt wrong, like he was warning me away from the truth. "I was just looking for supplies," I replied, but my heart raced. He stepped inside, blocking the exit. That's when I got the sinking feeling that I wasn't supposed to be in that room. I took a step back, my mind racing through my options. Would confronting him do any good? "Listen," I started, "I think we need to talk about what's going on here." Before I could finish, he said, "There are rules." The gravity of his words sank into me. I moved to the side, trying to slip past him, but he reached out and grabbed my arm, his grip tight. The warning in his voice sent ice through my veins. "Do not leave," he repeated, and I knew right then that whatever was really happening at this outpost was worse than I had imagined. I struggled to break free from his grip, panic swelling in my chest. "What do you mean, rules?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. His expression was unreadable, but I could see a flicker of something. Fear, maybe? "You don't get it. You're digging into things that aren't meant to be disturbed." He hesitated, as if weighing the consequences of his next words. "You're not the only one who hears the radio." I felt the floor shift beneath me. "What do you mean? Who else hears it?" My heart raced as dread settled over me. He looked over his shoulder, as if checking for unseen watchers. "We all do. But it's better if you just leave it alone. Trust me." "Trust you?" I scoffed, the disbelief evident in my tone. "How can I trust anyone here when there are files and codes connected to whatever is happening? The radio told me to find them." His eyes darted around the room. "You need to shut it down," he urged quietly. "Stop asking questions. You don't know what you're getting involved in." A noise echoed from the hallway, heavy footsteps approaching. My instincts kicked in. I pushed against him, finally breaking free. "Get out of my way!" He hesitated for just a second too long. I bolted past him, the adrenaline coursing through me like fire. If there were rules, I was about to break every single one. I needed answers. I dashed down the corridor, trying to recall the layout of the outpost. There had to be a central database, or somewhere they stored sensitive information. I thought of the office with the locked cabinets I had seen before. It would be a risk, but I had to try. Just as I rounded the corner, the footsteps behind me grew closer. That same teammate emerged from the shadows, urgency etched on his face. "You can't keep running," he shouted, but I couldn't stop, not now. I reached the office door and pushed it open. The dim light pierced through the small window, illuminating a small desk cluttered with papers. My eyes skimmed over everything until they landed on a locked drawer. I needed the codes. They had to be written down somewhere. My fingers fumbled with the locks, but the sound of heavy steps echoed ever closer. I frantically opened drawers, pulling out folders, each one revealing more bizarre documentation. Dossiers labeled with names I didn't recognize, reports filled with incomprehensible data. That's when I saw it, nestled beneath a stack of those files. A small, leather-bound notebook. I yanked it free, flipping it open. The code was right there, scrawled in a hand I didn't recognize. "Stop!" The voice sent a jolt through me. I looked up, and my heart sank. A figure loomed in the doorway, my commanding officer. Fear and anger twisted together in my gut. I said, "Don't leave," he demanded, stepping inside and blocking my only exit. I held the notebook up, my only lifeline. "What's in this? What's going on?" A dark smile crept across his face. "You really shouldn't have come here." And just like that, the hope I had clung to shattered. I froze, the notebook dangling from my fingertips. My mind raced. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The weight of the moment pressed down on me like an anchor, pulling me deeper into unknown waters. "What are you hiding?" I managed to force out, trying to sound braver than I felt. His smile widened. "Hiding? Oh, sweet, naive recruit. It's not hiding. It's protecting you from things beyond your comprehension." He stepped closer, and I instinctively backed up against the desk. "Protecting me, or yourself?" My voice wavered just enough. I couldn't back down now, not when I was so close to uncovering the truth. I glanced at the door, weighing my options. His eyes flicked to the small window, gauging if anyone else was near. "There are forces at play here that you can't imagine. You think you can just dig into things? You're real confident. But there's a price to pay for curiosity." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I thought back to the strange messages coming from the radio, the whispers weaving through the static. Had I gone too far? Was I really ready to face whatever lurked beyond this building? "I'm already in too deep," I whispered, more to myself than to him. There came a sound, a static crackle, followed by a faint voice over the radio. Embedded in the wall, my heart raced. "Make a choice," my commanding officer said, eyes narrowing. "You can hand that over and walk away, or you can become part of something you don't fully understand." The radio's voice grew clearer, my blood ran cold. It only repeated one word: "Run." I felt my stomach drop. Was it warning me, or was it the radio luring me further into this madness? Before I could react, footsteps thundered from the nearby hallway. The noise was muffled, but charged with urgency. My eyes darted between my commanding officer and the door. "Help!" A voice echoed from behind the door, layered with tremors of distress. Another team member, perhaps? The officer's expression shifted. His confidence faltered for an instant. "No one is coming to help you," he said quickly, determination hardening his features. "If you know what's good for you, you'll give me that notebook, now." I gripped it tighter, the leather cool against my palm. It held the secrets I desperately needed. But what about the voice calling for help? I could make a choice: surrender to him, or risk everything by bolting for the door. Time slowed as I weighed the possibilities. Then, in a burst of instinct, I hurled the notebook towards his face. "I won't let you control me." He staggered back, but before I could make a break for it, a third figure emerged in the doorway. It was another uniformed soldier, face pale with panic, dragging someone behind him. "Get down!" he shouted. And that was the last coherent thing I heard before everything fell apart. The world went dark. I came to in darkness, disoriented. My body ached, and the cold floor chilled my skin. Whatever had happened, I felt trapped. Panic stirred in my chest, and I forced myself to take a deep breath. I needed to regain my focus. The sound of muffled voices cut through the silence. I strained to hear, trying to piece together what had occurred. "We have to get her out of here," a voice said urgently. "Not yet. We can't risk it. If he comes back." That voice trailed off, and I felt every nerve in me tighten. Who were they talking about? I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes to the nothingness surrounding me. I forced myself to rise, wincing as I stood. My knees felt unsteady, and the memories of my last moments loomed in my mind. My commanding officer, the notebook, the soldier arriving in the doorway. "Hey, are you okay?" Another voice broke through. A figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette becoming clearer by the dim light of an emergency exit sign. It was the soldier I have seen dragging someone earlier. "What happened?" I croaked, the words scraping my throat. He hesitated, glancing back into the shadows. "There was an explosion. We had to move fast. The entire wing of the building is in chaos." Explosion? The gravity of the situation hit me like a punch. What about everyone else? "There's no time to explain. We need to leave now." He grabbed my arm, and I flinched at the roughness of his grip. "We're not safe here. The officer, he's not what you think." That jolted me. "What do you mean?" "He's part of something bigger," he said, urgency rising in his tone. "Things you can't understand. You have to trust me." Trust. That word felt foreign, especially now. I glanced around, trying to find some sense of my surroundings. The emergency exit sign flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Where's the person you were dragging?" "Clarity," he replied, dragging me toward the door. "He's injured, but alive. He can help you understand." Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from somewhere nearby. I froze, feeling the hairs on my neck stand up. "We need to move," he urged, pulling me down a narrow corridor as the sound of pounding footsteps approached. I followed him blindly, adrenaline surging through my veins. As we turned a corner, I caught a glimpse of a face, a familiar face. "Jack!" I shouted, recognizing my teammate. He stumbled toward us, his uniform torn and smeared with dirt. "What happened?" he gasped. "The officer. He's lost control." "Where's the exit?" I asked, scanning for any signs of hope. "Down this way," Jack motioned, glancing over his shoulder nervously. The soldier who helped me hesitated, weighing his next words. "You have to stay together. If you split up, they'll catch you." "Who will?" "The ones he calls the Guardians. They don't want you to know." Before I could process this, my thoughts were interrupted by a loud, shrill alarm blaring throughout the building. The air shifted, a suffocating sense of urgency wrapping around me. "Go!" Jack shouted as footsteps echoed behind us. That's when I saw it, a door marked with a flickering sign, "The Way Out." A flash of hope ignited within me. But would we make it there alive? We barreled toward the exit, but dread settled in my stomach. The footsteps behind us grew louder, relentless. I wanted to glance back, but fear of what I'd see kept me focused ahead. "Keep moving," Jack shouted, pushing past an open door to our right. We ducked inside, the small room barely illuminated by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. It looked like an old storage closet, filled with dusty boxes and forgotten equipment. "What now?" I gasped, sweat clinging to my brow. The soldier closed the door behind us, the sound of our breaths echoing in the cramped space. "We wait," he said, pressing an ear against the door. His eyes were sharp, scanning for any signs of movement. "They'll pass by, but we have to be silent." I nodded, fighting back panic. The alarms blared like angry sirens. I could still remember how everything had erupted, the chaos, the explosion, and the sickening feeling of betrayal. "What did you mean by the officer?" I asked, desperate for clarity. What's going on?" "The officer was supposed to protect you," he answered quietly, his voice trembling with urgency. "But he's compromised. He's been working with the Guardians, feeding them information." Feeding them. My stomach churned at the thought. Why would he do that? Power, control, I don't know. But they want something from you, all of you. Suddenly, a loud bang shook the door. My heart leaped into my throat. "They're coming," Jack whispered, his eyes wide. "Do you have any weapons?" I asked the soldier, my voice barely above a... "They were taken during the chaos. We're exposed," he replied, panic creeping into his voice. The banging intensified, and the door shuddered as someone slammed against it. My breath came in quick gasps. I felt trapped, not just by the walls, but by the unknown lurking outside. Who are these Guardians? I couldn't hold back the question as I took a step back, away from the door. Group of elites, powerful, secretive. They don't just protect, they control. He lowered his voice, glancing back at the door. And they're ruthless. My mind raced. What do they want with us, with me? "He thinks you're special," he said, referencing the officer. "You've been exposed to things others shouldn't have been. They see you as a threat and an opportunity." A wave of ice pierced my heart. A threat? Another loud crash against the door sent adrenaline coursing through me. "That's our cue," Jack said, moving toward the door. "Are you crazy?" I grabbed his elbow, panic bubbling up. "We can't just open it. What if—" Before I could finish, Jack flung the door open. We rushed into the hallway. My heart raced as chaos enveloped us. Figures dashed past, some in military uniforms, others in dark suits, all fueled by fear or aggression. "What do we do?" I shouted over the din. "Stick close," barked the soldier beside me, his fear palpable. We sprinted down the hall, desperation propelling us. I had a fleeting thought that this was supposed to be safe, but it felt anything but. In that moment, a realization gripped me. I didn't just want to escape. I needed to understand the truth behind this mess, who I was to this twisted game, and why I was being hunted. With that thought came clarity. I wasn't just running away. I needed to fight back. As we turned another corner, I noticed something glinting in the rubble. A shard of metal. Could it be a weapon? Hope surged. But just then I heard a shout, one that froze me in place. "There she is! Don't let her get away!" Time seemed to stand still as the realization hit me hard. Whoever the Guardians were, they were closing in fast, and they were not going to let me go. I sprinted forward, but the shout echoed in my ears, a stark reminder that we were being hunted. Jack's hand was tight on my wrist, guiding me through the cluttered hallway. Panic coursed through my veins as we turned another corner, my mind racing toward options. "Where do we go?" I gasped, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks as the walls felt like they were closing in. "There should be an exit at the far end," Jack replied, urgency sharpening his voice. "But we'll need to stay sharp. They know the layout better than we do." As we ran, my gaze flicked to the walls, searching for anything that might give us an advantage. I spotted a fire extinguisher hanging crookedly against the wall. Would I be able to use it? Before I could voice my thought, Jack was yanking me toward a heavy door marked "Staff Only." He flung it open, and we slipped inside, the metal shrieking in protest. My heart pounded as the sound of footsteps echoed louder in the corridor behind us. "Is this safe?" I whispered, eyeing the dim interior. The room was cluttered with desks and old maps, the smell of stale coffee mixed with something metallic. "For now," Jack muttered, his eyes darting around. "They probably won't expect us to hide here." I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breath. "What do we do next? They won't stop." Jack looked around, his expression turning serious. "We have to find a way to communicate. There might be a radio or something. If we can reach someone outside—" His voice trailed off as he spotted something across the room. "Over there!" He rushed to a desk covered in dust, pushing aside papers until a small radio came into view, tangled in cords and residual clutter. I hurried over, but my triumph faded when I saw the cracked screen. "What if it's broken?" "We have to try," he said urgently, kneeling to examine the device. He began twisting knobs, and I held my breath, listening for any sign of life. It crackled for a moment before the static hissed back into silence. "It's no use," I said, my shoulders sagging. "What now?" "Let's keep looking," he said, almost absent-mindedly as his hands fumbled over the equipment. In that moment, a noise outside caught my attention, a low rumble that grew louder. "What is that?" I asked, eyes wide. "Keep it down," Jack hissed, freezing at the sound. Suddenly, the door burst open. A dark figure stumbled in, flanked by two others. I barely registered the uniforms before I felt adrenaline spike through me. We were cornered. Jack reached for something on the desk, but I shoved him back. "No," I whispered fiercely, "we can't fight them. We have to escape," he shot back, panic lacing his voice. Then I saw it. The window. It was small, but it could lead us to freedom. "That way," I gestured towards it. "Are you sure?" he asked, eyes darting between me and the intruders entering the room. "There's no choice," I insisted. Just as we made for the window, a voice boomed, "Get them!" And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just running from the Guardians. I was stepping into a fight that I never asked for, and the rules of this twisted game were about to change. I scrambled toward the window, my heart racing. The frame was narrow, but desperation surged through me. "You go first," I urged Jack, my voice strained. "No, we'll both," he started, but I cut him off. "Just do it." My hands shook as I pushed him toward the open space. If I waited any longer, the guards would be on us. Jack hesitated, glancing back at the looming figures. With a determined nod, he took a running leap, flinging himself through the window. I couldn't tell if he landed safely. I focused on my own escape. I ducked and squeezed through, wincing as the jagged edge of the window scraped against my side. Air rushed around me as I fell, landing hard on the snow below. The cold bit into my skin, but I barely noticed. I scrambled up, looking around for Jack. "Over here," he called, just a few feet away. He was already running toward a cluster of trees. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by urgency. We had to move before they found us. I followed Jack, my feet pounding against the frozen ground. Every sound made my heart race harder, branches snapping, snow crunching. The forest loomed around us, dark and foreboding. We pushed deeper into the trees, hoping to lose them in the maze of trunks. "Do you think they saw us?" I whispered, trying to catch my breath. "I don't know. We need to keep going," Jack replied. His eyes darted back the way we came. "They won't stop hunting us." We wove through the trees until we reached a clearing, the moonlight casting shadows all around us. I leaned against a tree, panting. "What's the plan now?" Jack closed his eyes for a moment, collecting himself. "We hide until we can figure out where to go. If we stick to the shadows, they might not find us." I nodded, but doubt settled in my stomach. "And then what? We can't stay out here forever." Before Jack could respond, a distant shout echoed through the woods. Panic shot through me. "They're getting closer. We can't stay here." "Let's move deeper," he urged, pulling me along. We hurried into the thickets, every rustle of leaves sending chills down my spine. That's when I noticed something unusual, dim lights flickering in the distance. "Jack, look!" I pointed through the trees. "What is that?" He squinted in the glare. "I don't know. It could be their camp." Fear merged with curiosity. If it was a camp, we might find help, or something that could turn the tide in our favor. But if it was a trap, "Do we risk it?" I asked, the weight of my uncertainty pressing down on me. "We don't have much choice," Jack replied, determination hardening his voice. "Let's scout it out." We moved cautiously, sticking to the shadows, heartbeats echoing in the stillness. The lights grew brighter, revealing a makeshift structure surrounded by figures moving purposefully. I glanced at Jack, and I could see his resolve fading. Then, everything went dark. The world turned silent, leaving only the pounding of my heart and the echo of danger lingering in the air. What had just happened? I turned to Jack, but he was gone. The fear gripped me. A new threat had entered the game, and I was left on my own. I blinked, trying to adjust. The sudden darkness. Panic prickled at the edges of my mind, but I forced myself to focus. Jack! Where was he? I called his name, but only silence answered. The oppressive stillness around me felt alive, as if it were holding its breath, waiting. I took a cautious step forward, the cold ground crunching beneath my boots. There was no way I could stay here. I needed to find Jack and figure out what had happened. I turned, straining my ears for any sound, but everything remained unnaturally quiet. It felt wrong. Then I heard it, a low, growling sound, like something shifting through the underbrush. I froze, heart racing again. Was it the guards, or something worse? I squinted into the darkness, desperately trying to see through it. Jack, I whispered loudly, my voice trembling. Jack, where are you? No response. My gut twisted, and I could feel the weight of suffocating dread settle in. It was as if the shadows were thickening around me, pressing against my skin. I took another step, moving away from the growling noise. The lights in the distance flickered again, less stable this time, like they were fighting to stay alive. Maybe Jack had gone toward them, but what if they were part of the trap? I bit down on my lip, torn between following the light or trying to find Jack. Then came the sound that changed my mind. A sudden crash nearby. A branch snapped, followed by the rustling of leaves. My instincts kicked in, and I dashed toward the flickering lights, praying it would lead me back to Jack. As I crept closer, I could make out the shape of the structure. It was a small cabin, made of dark wood, with smoke curling up from a chimney. A fire roared inside, casting long shadows. Figures moved swiftly, their faces obscured by the dim light. Were they friends or foes? I peered from behind a tree, heart pounding wildly. A part of me wanted to turn back, to hide in the safety of the trees. But another part whispered that this was our best chance. Then, just as I took a breath to step forward, I saw what almost made me scream. A guard. He appeared at the edge of the clearing, scanning the area with a flashlight, beams searching like fingers through the dark. I instinctively ducked back behind the tree, panic flooding me again. Had he seen me? I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. As he stepped closer, the faint glow of the cabin illuminated his features just enough for me to recognize him. It was one of the guards from before. If he got a hold of me, I would never get out of here. My heart skipped, and I glanced back toward the cabin. Whatever was happening inside might be my only chance. But with the guards so close, I couldn't just bolt for it. I needed a plan. Then I remembered the trees. If I could move quietly, maybe I could circle around and get closer to the light without being spotted. I took a deep breath and hugged the tree trunk, hoping the shadows could shield me from view. My mind was racing. I didn't know where Jack was or what had happened to him when the lights went out. But I knew one thing. I had to act fast. Before I had another moment to second-guess myself, I took off, dodging the guard and desperately hoping I would find my friend before it was too late. I darted through the trees, the darkness clinging to me like a shroud. My heart raced as I silently navigated through the underbrush. I was acutely aware of the soft crunch of snow beneath my feet, and the sound of the guard's footsteps echoed in my mind, reminding me that I wasn't just running towards something, I was also fleeing from something terrifying. As I crept closer to the flickering lights of the cabin, I felt a surge of hope mix with fear. Maybe this place could offer the shelter I so desperately needed. Maybe here lay answers to the chaos that had consumed the outpost, to the truth behind the ominous radio voice and the bizarre rules hanging over us like a cloud. But then a noise broke through the night. A voice, a familiar one. "Get away from her!" Jack shouted, and it sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. Was he nearby? My instincts kicked in. I needed to reach him. I picked up the pace, my feet moving faster despite the pounding in my chest. I pushed through the thickets, finally reaching the clearing where the cabin stood. Peering inside, I could see a group huddled around the fire, but there was no sign of Jack. I leaned closer, praying my presence wouldn't be betrayed by the crunch of snow or the rustling branches. "Where is she?" The guard's voice cut through the night like glass, clear and chilling. It wasn't simply a threatened shout, it was a command lurking in the air. "You thought you could protect her." I followed the voice, spotting Jack tied to a chair in a shadowed corner of the cabin. My heart dropped. He looked bruised but defiant. There was a flicker of hope in his eyes as they found mine, and it strengthened my resolve. I needed to get him out of there. I held my breath, scanning for anything that could distract the guards long enough for me to act. I spotted an old, rusted shovel leaning against the cabin. Perfect. I made my way to it, carefully maneuvering to stay hidden. I reached over and grabbed it, feeling the cold handle grip my fingers. "Let her go!" Jack shouted again, his voice echoing through the cabin. This time, the guard turned his flashlight toward him. "There she is!" the guard bellowed, suddenly aware of my presence. "Get her!" I swung the shovel with all my strength, catching the guard off guard. The metal clanged against his arm, and he staggered back, shock momentarily passing over his face. It wasn't enough to incapacitate him for long, but it created an opening. "Jack, I'm coming!" I yelled, rushing across the threshold. I could hear the commotion as the other guards turned, their attention diverted for just a moment. "Stay back!" one shouted. "Don't engage her!" I dove toward Jack, adrenaline surging as I aimed for the ropes binding his wrists. "Hold on!" With a few wild swings of the shovel, I broke through the thick cords, freeing him at last. "Let's get out of here," he urged, his eyes wide with urgency. We didn't waste time. The two of us sprinted toward the door, a rush of freedom surging through me when we made it outside, the cold air hitting us like water after being submerged. But our liberation was short-lived. Behind us, the guards were shouting, their voices merging into a cacophonous thunder. "She can't get away! Stop them!" "Which way?" Jack panted, glancing around in the bare moonlight. "Over the ridge." I pointed toward the shadowy silhouettes of trees on the far side. "We'll have to find cover." As we ran, I felt the weight of the guards' pursuit bearing down on us with every moment. The forest wrapped around us, its branches clawing and clutching at our clothes. We dodged through thickets and ducked under low branches until we stumbled upon the ridge, the ground sloping down to a small ravine. "Down there!" I shouted, and we raced down the incline, the snow giving way to patches of treacherous ice. We landed hard at the bottom, breathless and now more exposed than ever. "Do you think we lost them?" Jack asked, scanning the darkness behind us. "I don't know," I admitted, my pulse racing, "but we can't stop." We crawled deeper into the frozen undergrowth, grateful for the shadows covering us. Breathless moments passed, filled with silence, broken only by the distant calls of the guards searching for us. In the chill of the dark, I felt the weight of what had happened wash over me. The outpost, the whispers of the radio, the betrayal, and the terror that followed. I turned to look at Jack, ready to share what I had uncovered, but a sound erupted nearby, a rustling that grew nearer. "Shh!" Jack hissed, eyes wide. We both held our breath, the tension sharp between us. I could feel my heart beating against my ribs like a warning drum. But what lay ahead of us, I could not tell. Did the darkness conceal friends or foes? Were we truly free, or caught in another trap?
As shadows danced and whispers grew closer, I understood that I still had questions left unanswered. Something deeper stirred in the night, something beyond my understanding. I wasn't sure what we had escaped or what waited ahead, but I knew one thing for certain. The truth was still out there, lurking just beyond.
The dark, and so was I.